Joining me now is the Democratic Secretary of State of Arizona, Adrian Fontes. In his previous role as the Maricopa County Recorder, he oversaw the administration of the 2020 elections in Arizona's largest county and witnessed the threats against election workers and against democracy. Secretary Fontes, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. How are you doing this morning?
I'm well, thank you. And you were on the front lines of seeing how some of this was happening in terms of voting. And I guess the thing about this case that's so interesting to me is, like when you read this Georgia case, you go from thinking that this was sort of a bumbling band of fools who was trying to sort of get things their way into something that seems much more sophisticated. And that's what this Arizona indictment sort of outlines.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that we need to realize here is, one of the complaints is that this has come too slow. But at the end of the day, the Attorney General, Kris Mayes, in Arizona, is a very thoughtful and a very careful prosecutor. She and her team are crossing all of the T's and dotting all of the I's to make sure that these criminal defendants, are going to have their rights upheld. Let's remember, they're presumed innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, those grand jurors were presented with sufficient evidence to bring these charges. This was not just a decision by some prosecutor. There were somewhere between 16 and 23 grand jurors who decided to return a true bill and start the criminal prosecution in Arizona, which, as you have indicated, is connected in many ways to a lot of what else happened across the country, that pattern and practice. But the really important thing here is that the process be preserved. Americans depend on their elections the way they depend on their criminal justice system. Due process is what is essentially American, and we've got to preserve these processes with integrity.
Okay, so here, and this is your job. You are the second highest elected statewide official. You are also responsible for the overseeing of elections. So this is not something that just happened in the past in Arizona. A lot of the people involved in this, not named as co-conspirators, but a lot of the people involved in telling you that the election was fake in Arizona and Michigan and those kinds of places are still in power, or at least are still very active in politics in Arizona. This isn't about the past. They still are active in what looks like the misrepresentation of democracy in your state.
Well, some of them are actually in our state legislature. Look, this is a frustratingly slow process, again, for many people, and I get that. But the bottom line is this: if we're going to fight to preserve and protect our democracy, and more importantly, the rule of law generally, we've got to take the circumstances for what they are. We have to be thoughtful, we have to be thorough, and we've got to practice what we preach. We cannot let emotion or politics get in the way of these things. Again, remember, these are processes laid out ahead of time. They have been thoroughly vetted through the regular judicial segment of our democracy that is the grand jury process. The criminal defendants will be afforded all of their rights, and it doesn't matter who's involved in what level of government or what part of power. In the United States, no person is above the law, and that's the principle that we need to continue to practice, not just preach.
So here's the thing that I am worried about in Arizona, where all these races were remarkably tight. You and some of your other candidates who won statewide office did so, in fact, with the help of some Republicans who said, we're not signing up for this nonsense that the Republican Party of Arizona is involved in. However, the Trump people would have you believe that these separate states of electors were there in case they won an audit or they won a court case. They would be in a position to at least advance Donald Trump's claim for the presidency. But that's not what it became. It actually became a thing in which people who knew they were not electors said they were electors, in which people who knew otherwise convinced others to sign letters and documents to say that they're electors. How do you prevent this from happening again in this year's election in a place like Arizona? Because that again, is going to fall to you to some degree.
Well, we prevent it by doing exactly what we are doing right now. We work closely with the proper authorities, in this case, the Attorney General, and we move forward with the kinds of cases and the kinds of prosecutions that are appropriate under the law. We stay steady, we stay firm, and at the end of the day, democracy will prevail. Look, people are being held accountable. We have outstanding indictments at this time against some county officials who refuse to certify elections. And here's the deal. If you want to mess around and find out, go ahead, but you're going to be facing the rule of law. You're going to be facing some sober prosecutions. And isn't this what Americans really want? We just want that normalcy. We want a predictable process, regardless of who wins and who loses at the end of the day. We want to get back to the business of America. That's what we are presenting. That's what we are trying to make sure that people understand as a deterrent to this kind of wackiness in the future.
The Arizona co-defendant, unindicted co-conspirator 3, is Mark Finchem. He was your opponent in the 2022 Arizona Secretary of State race. He is an election denier, as were other Republican candidates, top candidates for top state offices in Arizona in 2022. You and I were there just before the election talking about this. Is there a reckoning inside the Arizona Republican Party about this? I know there was some reckoning because a lot of those people went and supported you and other people who were not election deniers. That was their own protest. But that wasn't a structural reckoning within the party. Is that happening as far as you know?
Well, we do know there's been some rough times at the Arizona Republican Party, and I'm not going to really wax on the politics of it, but they do have a new party chair because of a little controversy that happened very recently. And there is, a little bit of infighting over there. But the reality is this. I'm not concerned with the politics. I'm not concerned with the actual outcomes of the candidate races in our elections. My team and I, across the entire state, are focused on making sure that our opinions, whether they're political or not, are separate from our duties, which are duties to every single voter across the state of Arizona. And most election officials in the United States of America follow this same sort of a mantra. We're okay with seeing the political fights happen around us. The problem is when we get dragged in with false accusations, with lies, and with conspiracy theories accusing us of things that we did not do, like Mr. Finchem did. And while some of the races in Arizona were a little narrow, let me remind you, my victory against Mr. Finchem was not.
Yes, that's you and I talked right after that because yours actually was decided quite quickly. Here's the problem. You have been in this business for a while. You know it. You know what the threats feel like. You know how to handle them. But there are lots of people in your state and around this country who are volunteers or who are they're not office holders. They're not sort of important, notable people in society, but they're holding up democracy on their own. How do you see that unfolding in Arizona? Because there were a lot of people involved in the administration of elections last election who said, I don't want to get involved in this anymore. This is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I'm actually very encouraged, Ali, by the way that folks have stepped up and stepped into some of these offices. You know, we lost senior election officials in 12 out of our 15 counties, representing almost 92% of our voters in the last several years. But the folks who've come in wide-eyed. They understand the nature of the possible threats that they're going to be facing. We have trained them from the Secretary of State's office in such a direct way that we really know how to do it. As you mentioned, I'm a prior election administrator at Maricopa County. And so knowing that lingo, knowing the process as well, we're giving them the support that they need, and they're really stepping up. So while I am concerned with their safety, and I do hope that the FBI and the DOJ and all law enforcement continue to aggressively prosecute and pursue these folks who will issue these threats, the folks who are doing the work are standing up. They know the work is so important to our democracy. They understand their value, even if most of the American public doesn't ever see them or hear them. And so I'm really encouraged. I think they're doing phenomenally well, and we're gearing up for a good, solid 2024 election cycle on the administration side. Let the politics be what they are.
You know, you make me think we really have to highlight these people more. We really have to make them into the heroes that they are, because we kind of take for granted that elections just get run, but they don't, as we see. Real people run them. Thank you, sir. Good to see you as always. Adrian Fontes is the Secretary of State of Arizona.